The Psychology of Money. Chapter 14, You'll Change. I grew up with a friend who came from neither privilege nor natural intellect, but was the hardest working guy I knew. These people have a lot to teach because they have an unfiltered understanding of every inch of the road to success. His life's mission and dream as a teenager was to be a doctor. To say the odds were stacked against him is being charitable. No reasonable person at the time would consider it a possibility. But he pushed. And, a decade older than his classmates, he eventually became a doctor. How much fulfillment comes from starting from nothing, bulldozing your way to the top of medical school, and achieving one of the most noble professions against all odds? I spoke to him a few years ago. The conversation went like this. Me, long time no talk. How you do? Him, awful career. Me, haha, well. Him, awful career, man. This went on for 10 minutes. The stress and hours had worn him into the ground. He seemed as disappointed in where he is today as he was driven toward where he wanted to be 15 years ago. An underpinning of psychology is that people are poor forecasters of their future selves. Imagining a goal is easy and fun. Imagining a goal in the context of the realistic life stresses that grow with competitive pursuits is something entirely different. This has a big impact on our ability to plan for future financial goals. Every 5-year-old boy wants to drive a tractor when they grow up. Few jobs look better in the eyes of a young boy whose idea of a good job begins and ends with, vroom vroom, beep beep, big tractor, here I come. Then many grow up and realize that driving a tractor maybe isn't the best career. Maybe they want something more prestigious or lucrative. So as a teenager they dream of being a lawyer. Now they think, they know, their plan is set. Law school and its costs, here we come. Then, as a lawyer, they face such long working hours that they rarely see their families. So perhaps they take a lower-paying job with flexible hours. Then they realize that childcare is so expensive that it consumes most of their paycheck, and they opt to be a stay-at-home parent. This, they conclude, is finally the right choice. Then, at age 70, they realize that a lifetime of staying home means they're unprepared to afford retirement. Many of us wind through life on a similar trajectory. Only 27% of college grads have a job related to their major, according to the Federal Reserve. 29% of stay-at-home parents have a college degree. Few likely regret their education, of course. But we should acknowledge that a new parent in their 30s may think about life goals in a way their 18-year-old self making career goals would never imagine. Long-term financial planning is essential. But things change, both the world around you and your own goals and desires. It is one thing to say, we don't know what the future holds. It's another to admit that you, yourself, don't know today what you will even want in the future. And the truth is, few of us do. It's hard to make enduring long-term decisions when your view of what you'll want in the future is likely to shift. The end of history illusion is what psychologists call the tendency for people to be keenly aware of how much they've changed in the past, but to underestimate how much their personalities, desires, and goals are likely to change in the future. Harvard psychologist Daniel Gilbert once said, "At every stage of our lives we make decisions that will profoundly influence the lives of the people we are going to become, and then when we become those people, we are not always thrilled with the decisions we made." So young people pay good money to get tattoos removed that teenagers paid good money to get. Middle-aged people rush to divorce people whom young adults rush to marry. Older adults work hard to lose what middle-aged adults worked hard to gain. On and on and on. All of us, he said, are walking around with an illusion that history, our personal history, has just come to an end, that we have just recently become the people that we were always meant to be and will be for the rest of our lives. We tend to never learn this lesson. Gilbert's research shows that people from age 18 to 68 consistently underestimate how much they will change in the future. You can see how this affects a long-term financial plan. Charlie Munger says the first rule of compounding is to never interrupt it unnecessarily. But how do you avoid interrupting your money plan, your career, investments, spending, budgeting, when what you want out of life keeps changing? It's difficult. Part of the reason people like Ronald Read, the wealthy janitor we discussed earlier, and Warren Buffett became so successful is because they stuck with the same approach for decades, letting compounding work its magic. But most of us change so much over a lifetime that we don't want to keep doing the same thing for decades. Instead of one continuous 80-year journey, our financial lives often break into 4 different 20-year chapters. I know young people who intentionally live simple, low-income lives and are perfectly happy. And I know others who work extremely hard to afford a luxurious life, and they're happy too. But both paths come with risks. Times the simple living group may struggle to raise a family or save for retirement. Times the luxury-seeking group may one day regret spending their healthiest years trapped in a cubicle. There is no easy solution. Telling a 5-year-old boy to become a lawyer instead of a tractor driver won't work. He'll reject the idea with every part of his being. But there are 2 important things to remember when making what you believe are long-term decisions. We should avoid the extreme ends of financial planning. Believing you'll be happy with a very low income, or sacrificing everything to earn a very high one, increases the chances that you'll eventually face regret. The end of history illusion teaches us that people adapt to almost any situation, so the initial benefits of an extreme lifestyle, the simplicity of owning little, or the excitement of having a lot, eventually fade. But the downsides, being unable to afford retirement, or realizing you spent your best years chasing money, tend to stay with you. Regret hits hardest when you abandon one extreme plan and feel like you must sprint twice as fast in the opposite direction to make up for lost time. Compounding works best when you give a plan many years or decades to grow. This applies not just to savings, but to careers and relationships. Endurance matters. And because we constantly evolve throughout life, maintaining balance at every stage becomes the safest strategy for avoiding future regret and staying in the game long enough for your plans to pay off. If you aim throughout your working life to maintain moderate savings, moderate free time, a reasonable commute, and consistent family time, you greatly increase the odds of sticking with your long-term plan. Extreme choices in any one of these areas make long-term consistency harder. We should also accept the reality that our plans and preferences will change. Some of the most unhappy workers I've met are stuck in careers they chose simply because they picked that major at age 18. When you understand the end of history illusion, you realize how unlikely it is that a job you chose before you were even old enough to drink will still fulfill you when you're old enough for social security. The trick is to accept the reality of change and move on as soon as possible. Jason Zweig, the Wall Street Journal investment columnist, worked with psychologist Daniel Kahneman on writing Kahneman's book Thinking, Fast and Slow. Zweig once told a story about a personality quirk of Kahneman's that served him well. Nothing amazed me more about Danny than his ability to detonate what we had just done, Zweig wrote. He and Kahneman could work endlessly on a chapter, but the next thing you know, Kahneman sends a version so utterly transformed that it is unrecognizable. It begins differently, it ends differently, it incorporates anecdotes and evidence you never would have thought of, it draws on research that you've never heard of. When I asked Danny how he could start again as if we had never written an earlier draft, Zweig continued, He said. The words I've never forgotten. I have no sunk costs. Sunk costs, anchoring decisions to past efforts that can't be refunded, are a devil in a world where people change over time. They make our future selves prisoners to our past, different selves. It's the equivalent of a stranger making major life decisions for you. Embracing the idea that financial goals made when you were a different person should be abandoned without mercy. Versus put on life support and dragged on can be a good strategy to minimize future regret. The quicker it's done, the sooner you can get back to compounding. Next, let's talk about compounding's price of admission.